So, you all, welcome to the fourth Poetry and Organ Lenten concert. And you know this is an improvisational enterprise, and it's so improvisational. We're going to do this without Andrew today. I pity you. But I pity Rupert even more because he doesn't get to partake in that magic. But he's under the weather, and I'm sure you understand what I'm saying when I say he has no replacement. And so we don't care, do we? Liars. Anyway, so here's the plan. I wrote in 2010, I wrote a poem entitled To the Organ, and that was when Jose Daniel was here, and it actually came out of the period, I wrote it before then, because Ray Adams was our organist, and I wrote it about our tracker organ, which was a completely mechanical machine, or whatever you would call an organ, more complicated than the space shuttle. And I'm going to read the sections. I want you to just sort of let your mind go with the music and the content of the poem. And then Rupert is going to come up as if I had played a piece. It has 6 sections. When I run out of sections, we'll have him read more poetry, because you're so fortunate that this is the poet we have here for this to have happened, because he is fabulous. And I honestly would not want to read after him. You'd say, where did everything go to? Everything left. Because he's so wonderful. We met in St. Augustine first at the Florida Literary Arts Coalition conference, and then we read together. We were both published in Kestrel out of Fairmont State University in West Virginia, West Virginia. And actually, fortunately, they divided our program. I read the first part of the poetry evening, and then he was the closer, and those two things were separated by a half an hour, and that was so good for me. So I'll tell you about Rupert. He's a Georgia native, and he reads his poems and conducts workshops at high schools and middle schools in the Atlanta area, and lives in the vicinities of Atlanta. He lives with his wife Kathy in Clarkston, Georgia, not far from their daughters and grandchildren. They spent 8 years on the farm, a spiritual community in Middle Tennessee, where they helped found in 1971, which they helped found in 71 after several years in the Bay Area. And that would be in the San Francisco Bay Area? Yes, okay. Rupert's second collection of poems, which is here and also available, Hello, the House, was named one of the books all Georgians should read in 2018 by the Georgia Library Council. So I give you Rupert.
Thanks so much, Sean. It's great to be here. I used to spend all my summers up at Patrick Air Force Base by the Cape. So this is kind of like coming back home. So I do go around and I give readings at a lot of universities. And sometimes if you're booking yourself, you lose track of where you're supposed to be the next day, right? And then you overbook yourself. And so it's about 2 or 3 years ago, I was reading in Troy University, Troy, Alabama. The very next day, I had to be at the University of Georgia. Which I shouldn't have booked these things so close together. I'm going, it's so far. I'm driving and driving, got up early in the morning, drinking a lot of coffee. I go, this is a huge trip. This is a long trip. I'm going from Troy all the way to Athens. I went, wait a minute. I think there's a story here. And I know for you scholars, Odysseus went back to Ithaca. It wasn't Athens, but that's close enough. Athens is close enough, right? And I was on the home stretch of that journey when this mythological need to pee real bad came over me. And there, on cue, in the wilds of Vero County, out on Georgia 316, a Johnny Reb mini-mart hove into view, beckoning like Circe's island, except I did not get turned into a pig. I was just headed for the men's room, back by the big cooler, where there was somebody already waiting. And no, he wasn't some cracker oracle offering wisdom in a riddle. No to all that Homer stuff. We were just two guys in a bathroom line, that's all. Two guys exchanging the briefest of nods, that secret understanding, men, yes, we're in this thing together. Before the guy in machinist glasses and a green work shirt with Jimbo stitched in red on a white oval, he turned to me and, breaching all etiquette of men in or near public restrooms, Jimbo spoke to me. Whoever's in there is taking a hell of a long time with it. Jimbo's voice so loud, we both knew that they inside would have to hear him, and, as the English say, extraordinary thing, because this was when the door swung open. This was when I had to stare, because the person who emerged from the bathroom was so beyond tanned. He was cocoa butter made flesh. He was so bronzed, you had to wonder if maybe the bathroom had done it to him, as though the Johnny Reb mini-mart men's room was some secret portal onto a tropical sci-fi planet. But no, walking past me, yes, no, it couldn't be. Yes, but it was. It was the gambler. It was Kenny Rogers himself, ambulatory, a wax museum figure come to life. Kenny Rogers in the flesh. Well, it sort of looked like flesh. Now striding past me, striding past the golden flake potato chips display, one woman already screaming, Kenny, it's Kenny. The whole store united by our luck. The whole store dazzled by this descent from Mount Olympus of a true God. And even though I knew he had a 1,000-acre horse farm nearby, I wasn't that surprised. But here we were, all of our common people mini-mart lives touched in this moment by true fame. All of us now drunk on the heady sugar buzz from a 32-ounce big gulp of celebrity culture. All of us, that is, except Jimbo, who was oblivious, still intent on getting his shot at the Johnny Reb plumbing. But after one step in, Jimbo started fanning his hands, while again addressing me in that too loud voice, Jesus, that pervert stunk it up bad in here. And I knew that Jimbo was looking to me, his P-line comrade, for some affirmation. But forget that. I was way more interested in Kenny, who was now up at the register signing lottery tickets with hands that I hoped had been washed with soap and hot water, since he just checked in to see what condition his condition was in. Or maybe islands in the stream would be a better one. And right about here, the sadly predictable poem might start sermonizing on the democracy of biology, how the really famous are no different from the forgotten. But wasn't that ground already pretty much covered by Thomas Gray in 1750 with his elegy in the country churchyard where he said, "The paths of glory lead but to the grave"? And a slightly better off poem, a modernist one, might try to entertain itself with a red wheelbarrow out in the bed of Kinney's F-150 pickup, so much depending on that red wheelbarrow back on his farm. But the discursive postmodern poem would surely feel compelled to veer off into the head of the Johnny Red mini mart cashier, a head encircled by clusters of platinum curls from a dew that had not quite relaxed. And that poem would surely record her last wistful looks to Kinney, who so briefly had been in her life, but was now gone, signing a halter top out by his truck, leaving her to endure that most brutal of come-downs, her job, a series on the next one, the way all our lives play out, right? Her next one, a skinny guy in a Dale Earnhardt #3 Forever t-shirt. He's pointing to the snuff rack. No, he says, the red man, the menthol red man. And it's like the sadness of the world is filling her as she hands him the can. But watch out. I have to watch out right here, because this is an ethical dilemma. We cannot condescend to the cracker class. We can't appropriate any sacred life for our own artistic purposes. We can't write a ha-ha, not funny, I make fun of rednecks poem. And this is a transgression I am spared because the men's room door is again opening. I still have to pee real bad, remember? And there is Jimbo, having missed it all. Poor Jimbo, like the schlub who was looking at his phone when the meteor streaked by. Jimbo, again doing that fanning thing with his arms while looking at me, trying to make sure I understand that it was not him who made it stink so bad in there. And this will allow him to go back to his machine shop, his hammer press, and his crimper table. Jimbo leaving me alone to deal with that highest standard of the writing life. How the denouement of a really strong fiction or engaging verse, how those endings must be both surprising yet inevitable. And that's an impossible standard that's still somehow possible, like when Charlotte Bronte had Jane Eyre say, "Reader, I married him." Oh, that was surprising. But that was inevitable, too. And so to that end, I enter the Johnny Red Mini Mart bathroom, and I take in deep, lingering essence of Kinney. A smell that reminds me of the south end of Cumberland Island when the paper mill stench drifts over from Florida. And like most good stories, this one ends when it becomes less fun being in the story than it is telling it. Thank you. So another... So I was in college during the Vietnam War, and kids, people complain about college being tough then, but it was really tough in the 60s because, you know why. In the year of our Lord, 1965, my country was at war. But my college roommate and I decided to drive down from Athens to Macon for a double date at Wesleyan, a conservative women's school that had somehow booked Major Lance with his touring band. The most favorable omen for a possible makeout session. Soul music shows the aphrodisiac of that era, shows where doing the monkey led to slow dancing, wandering hands, lower body contact. But on this night, there would be none of that, because two elderly ladies stood just below the stage. It was the dean of women and the dean of no sex. Their scowls nonstop sweeping across us like searchlights over a prison yard at night. We would remain seated. None of the girls would be touched, monkeyed with, or slow danced tonight. Never mind the sacrifices we had made to get here, with finals all next week. Finals we should have stayed in our dorm to study for, because the failure of even one course meant the loss of your student deferment and a near certain tour to Vietnam. But no, we had left our books behind. We had driven deep into a winter night down US 441 in a bone-rattling VW Bug with no heater and bad wipers that skidded across a sleeting drizzle that was trying to freeze all those sacrifices we had made to get to a dance where there was no dancing. We hated those old women. Our dates feared them. And it has only recently occurred to me that those elderly women who so briefly intersected my life in 1965, those women, that means their grandfathers, the grandfathers of those women, no wait, that means their fathers, the men who actually conceived the grumpy deans who wouldn't let us dance, their fathers might well have fought for the right to own other humans. Those deans' fathers might well have owned other human beings themselves. And because I'm 77 now, and I'm telling my story, and because you're hearing all these things from me tonight, this puts you in my life's lineage, and this is how close we all still are to slavery. All right, so I did a lot of studying for 10 years, so lived on a commune, and we studied all the world's religions. We prided ourselves on being Buddhist, although we were kind of play-acting Buddhist. We sat, we tried to meditate. We didn't do that good a job of it. This is called A Question for Buddha. At the end of the all-day 5-band concert, our legs are so dead, they're screaming for rest. A park bench is sighted and almost in reach, except this blotto-drunk college kid is being half carried, half dragged by 3 of his friends in that ancient pose of humans attending a fallen comrade, whether at Troy or Fallujah or up in some frieze. The young man, pasty pale, his neurons flat slack, until some rogue energy washes through to wrest his body free. He takes one miracle step on his own before he's going back down again, like James Brown at the end of Please, Please, Please. His friends, now like the flames, leaning to him for encouragements to get back up, which he cannot do. The whole scene is so affirming until we see that they're dragging him straight to the bench we had promised our legs. An expedited ruling from Buddha now needed regarding his long revered command for unwavering compassion for all sentient beings. Not that there's any wiggle room in unwavering, but we're just kind of wondering, Mr. Buddha, sir, if your teaching extends even to toasted frat boys, like this overserved, puffy-faced doughboy who is now reclining like a bored emperor on the bench we had promised our legs, the bench we're pretty sure we saw first. So it's like sometimes you're thrown a test by the world. You know, how can we hold compassion all the time, constantly? Which that's, if you do that, you're home free, right? But there's always, and I told myself when I was growing up, I will never be mad at young people. And now I'm having that test, right? There's young, upwardly mobile, drunk kids who are sitting on my bench. I don't like that. Okay. I'll get a drink. This is called In the Pines, in the Pines. Does anybody know that song? It's one of the oldest songs in America. Lead Belly recorded it in the 20s. The people have variously attributed it to Lead Belly. But there's history of that poem being sung right after the Civil War, and it came through both the black tradition and the white tradition. It could be a murder ballad. It could be a song about a train, a long train. It could be a jealousy song. It could be, but in the pines and the pines. We're at the sidewalk bistro sipping crafty cocktails with breezy summer names when an elderly next table dog yelps while struggling to get up. Hip dysplasia, I say, late stage, like I'm a vet or something. Kathy says everybody in her town knew to call Carl Sabin whenever a dog had to be put down. And he'd just show up with a gun, I say? Basically, Kathy says, fathers didn't want to do it. Whew. I've been married so long to her, and I've never heard this one. But we rarely drink gin, so maybe that's it. I start to ask if the murderer's number was written on the wall, except some skateboard kids are clattering past, doing that up and down thing off concrete steps until the hostess goes out to run them off. The patio's suddenly quiet without their click-clack, click-clacks. The moment for more Carl Sabin questions now passed because it would seem like prying, and Kathy doesn't like to think of her town as Southern Gothic. But I see Carl Sabin as an unkempt backroad recluse waiting by the phone in his trailer, cleaning his 38 in the pines where the sun will never shine, and just shiver the whole night through. But that's just my city boy B-movie take. I see middle Georgia in the dark 1950s through the lens of a long train murder ballad, when really Carl Sabin might well have been a church elder. He might well have had trimmed fingernails, a quiet widower, one town's anointed ender of suffering. He's almost forgotten, yet still holding space in the mind of its now grown children. He's like the ex-lover a partner never mentions until the night their name somehow comes up and the current lover says, wait, what? Who? Who is that? Tell me about them. Anything at all. Yep. So, William Blake is one of the great names of Western literature. He saw visions his whole life. So this is called Young William Blake Sees Angels in a Hayfield. 4 takes. Take 1. Perhaps the boy hadn't had a good breakfast, low blood sugar. Yet there they were, angels floating behind dog-tired gleaners, angels who would later draw and etch. The child so dazzled, he ran the whole 3 miles back across the Thames to tell his parents, who gave him a memorable whipping because direct contact with the deity was a sin. It was not allowed. 2. You know, kids just don't get whipped for having visions anymore. And maybe it's because we live in an ion barrage, this sideways sandstorm of smartphone text, microwave signals, radar, 5G encrypted data, all of it right here, all of it. You can't see it, but it's here. It's brain static. Maybe it's jamming the angel's holy frequency. Dear God, what if they're still trying to get through to us? 3. I spent boyhood summers in a hayfield, bucking bales for my uncle. There were no angels, though, because they likely perceived I was immune to wonder. But at First Communion, something was really going on. There was an awareness as I knelt. Was it death? That place Christina Rossetti calls the Silent Land? That land where the Angels TV station is off the air like our old Zenith was after midnight when the world's mind became granulated dots. That's a test pattern, my father said. 4. I once spent 2 days snooping around where I thought Blake's hayfield was. Peckham Rye, a suburb of London, the boys' holy ground now long buried beneath the aggregate of dreary car parks and betting parlors. But shouldn't we just jackhammer up the whole concrete mess? Shouldn't we cart off the rubble, hitch up a team and plow? Shouldn't we just plant some hay and wait? So if like the angels came one time, they're going to come back again, right? You want me to do another one before you do your organ poem? Or?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to do one here, and then, because it is springtime, Sean, we just went out, we saw Sean's Wacom replacement heifers. I love that term. So he's got a field of replacement heifers, Sean does, and just recently the bulls were allowed in because it's spring, right? It's spring, and Charles Darwin is very happy because everybody's Darwinian strategies for passing their seed on is taking place right now. So this is an ode to a woodpecker that I saw on a nearby cell phone tower. The woodpecker was actually pounding the metal pole to attract mates because, technology, right? Pecking on wood, that's, yeah. Ode to the springtime woodpecker looking for love on a cell phone tower. We hear your alpha male rat-a-tat-tats echoing off that hollow steel pole, and we know you're hitting on any female woodpecker within range. Yo, girls, bong, 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 I am here. And sure, you may be hurting your pecker, but yes, you are there. We get that. We know who you are. We've seen you before. You're the teenage boy doing a backwards cannonball off the high dive for the new girls at the pool. And you're the half-drunk redneck going, hey, watch this, right before he hurts himself. And you're the sketchiest corner boy with the droopiest drawers in the deadest mall, the kid who cannot stop himself from saying, what's up, shorty girl? Every time a woman walks by. And that's the same as you cannot stop banging that hollow steel pole. Each peck from your rock-hard pecker announcing the good news that you are bad news. But check it out. You've adapted the digital technology. Yeah, you're not afraid of banging on steel up there, even while being pounded by potent microwaves, which, okay, we still don't know that much about their long-term side effects, but who cares when it's spring and you're full of woodpecker self, when it's your message must go forth. Yo, girls, come hang with me up here on this cell phone tower where gossip, phone sex, and 911 calls can blast through us while we make the most perfect babies. The girls' mothers hear you, and they try to warn their daughters, but that never works, does it? It only makes the girls want you more. They want you because you're at that age because they're at that age where they want trouble, and you are trouble. You are the blue light special of Passion and Crazy on aisle 9. You're the reason Penelope waited 10 years for Odysseus to come back from Troy. You're why Amber got mixed up with Johnny Depp. You're the reason Liz Taylor snuck off at midnight to marry Richard Burton twice. She did that twice. And you're Stanley Kowalski 50 feet in the air, and with each peck, you're screaming, Stella! And you're John Travolta out on the dance floor, his shirt unbuttoned so his Coke spoon necklace can catch the lights of a disco ball spinning, while in the background, the Bee Gees are going, well, you can tell by the way I use my walk, I'm a woman's man. No time to talk. And you're not talking. No, you're just banging that cold steel, even though it must have sunk in by now, bird brain, that there are no bugs in that metal cell phone pole, which is the whole point of pimping your pecking, to show how many juicy bugs you can provide. It's Darwinian, the urge to attract a hot mate. And here you are, Charles Darwin's prized pupil. Bang, bang, steal, steal, pull, pull, pecker, pecker, the truly important things in life. A fair warning of what life is going to be with you. It's going to be a hard banging ride. The girls hear you and they consider their choices. Should they listen to their mother's warnings, or should they go build a nest and make eggs with this wild-eyed young thug, this Mr. Risky Business? And this is a question that through the ages has never taken very long to answer. Not when there's a new player on the corner, on the block, up on the new cell phone tower. And sure, after they mate with you, the girls know they're going to have to watch you like a hawk. But that's the price of living on the edge. That's the price of being truly alive. That's the trade-off we all make or don't make in our lives. Should we never take a risk, or should we go for it? And the thing is, years later, some of those girls will end up wishing they had done it. Years later, they will be wishing that they had flown on up to you when they had the chance. Years later, some of those girls will be hanging out their woodpecker wash, clothespins in their mouths, daydreaming of that day when they had that one shot. The way we all remember the road not taken in our youth. And years later, some of those girls will think back to that spring morning when they heard a banging like no other they had ever heard before. That spring morning they could have, should have, flown on up there and said, baby, I hear what you're doing with your pecker, and baby, I hear the way it's pounding that long, hard, throbbing shaft of steel, and baby, I like what I hear, and baby, I want to make woodpecker babies with you up here on this cell phone tower. Because it is spring, and Sean has let the bulls out into the replacement heifers, which is a happy morning for us all, right? We'll do an organ point. I'll be back. I'll let Sean do his, I'm going to do one more when Sean gets back done. But thanks to you all for coming out.
I think I'm going to take over this one. So this was, as I say, drafted for a different organ. We had a choir loft and these connections between the keys and each pipe linked with 20-foot-long popsicle sticks. It was an amazing thing. To the organ, the epigraph is, "Then the Lord God formed man of dust from the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being." That was Genesis 2:7. The first part of the poem is actually it's concrete poetry. in the shape of pipes. You can kind of see. I've been advised against doing that. I don't know if anyway, we don't need to worry about that. To speak this thing, begin with the fundament. A man returns from war, property disputes settled, pursuit of lovely faces ended, blood and darkness, but 3 steps back from certain dawn, peace, order, industry, and hope. Within grasp, music arises in him, inevitable as spring flowers, grows like a joyous wind. He sends into empty, hollow things, as God gives breath to empty, hollow man, causing all such things to sing. Part 2. A principality. Let me say this too. The room is the last stop of this organ. The room itself. A principality placed between heaven and earth, full of what might be and what has always been. Country of the organ. Orchestra in all its motion and breath. You inside this dwelling place of effects, as in a guitar between wood-paneled walls and string-crossed hole to the sky. Or recumbent in the bell of a horn upon a couch of air, the furniture of this parlor aloft, voices of bands, instruments, and chorus, a body of sound inside its birthplace, always inside, as a river in its banks, running eternally from its source until overflowing, washing everything away. Country of the organ, place between heaven and earth. 3, the stops, separations of pressure into districts of sound, principal, flutes, strings, reeds, ranks of pipes fed from the great cabinet of wind, like burrows of a city built by the sea, with aerodynamic streets and alleyways, an economy founded on air. The inevitable division of labor, swell, positive, Hopwork choir, grand households and families of this city, their good names, Eoline, Amorosa, Apfelrugel, Bauerflot, Basunel, Bombardon, Como de More, Cremena and Cuckoo, lineages of the country of the organ, each of a craft and trade, derivations of shape and sound, different as the species of glasses of a well-stocked bar, fluting, stems and hollows, bells, volume and depth, each different and distinct to its purpose, servile to a task, vases ever poured into and out of with decants of wind, washed with emptiness to be filled again. And the taste and variety of its stock in trade, liqueurs, aperitifs, clear strains and whiskeys, ales, lagers and stouts, juices, carbonates, wines of distinction and common fare, all specialties of the house that is the organ. Its folk, singing, crying in happiness, pleasure, travail, and woe, voices, gamba, glockenspiel and gongs, marimba, mellophone, musette, nocturne, ocarina and oboe, philomelo and pifero, flora of breath in the great varietal botany of music, sackbut, shark fraggle, sesquihar, quisquit, some of these words, stenthorn, tercimbel, tibia dura, trombocini, tuba sonora, members of an extraordinary society, aggregations of kind, undamaris, viola, pomposa, vox humana, zimbal sharf, Bird full of feathers, head full of hairs, uncountable digits of gigantic hands and feet, bristling whistles of copper and nickel, set in little beds with great delicacy and taste, planted beneath hedges of pipes, horns sprouting everywhere, row upon row, all this as though planned and brought into being at the edge of a wood, near the feet of great and veritable trees, pedal pipes, 10, 20-foot boxes of oak and ash, stood on end, soughing, murmuring like old-growth forest in an afternoon breeze, planted in shade, rooted in air. An entire garden has risen to stand in darkness. Four. Yet this is no garden, orchard, or wood, but a man trapped in a wall with his thoughts singing to himself. Like any life, what you see is the small part. The cordial made-up face, shiny, expectant mouth, eyes open, orifices agape, and beneath the surface of this like sum of being are things tied together in the dark, structures knit and glued, long reaches of bone, crossed and joined, innumerable connections, articulations, finger to heart, toe to mind, bowel to eye, ear to foot, and all of it hitched to lungs innermost, eternally pulsing, heart-driven tides of air, an indoor tornado, calamitous and coursing through channels, vessels, capillaries, and valves, filling, emptying, and filling again, pressurizing every part, vitals and extremities, bottom to top, inside out with the tonus and rigor of its life, all taking place invisibly to you, but just like you, a body of parts, bearing hunger, want, and need, its burden of dreams, hope, and despair, all set in motion with each inhalation. Machine, alas, beneath it all, with valves, pistons, pinions, and gears, springs, catches, louvers, and stays, opening, closing, spinning, turning, running interminably at the service of quiet, constant respiration, breath, awaiting touch. 5. Not one man, but many make up this thing. Draftsman and engineer, designer and salesman, an army of tradesmen at the bottom of this grand concoction. Plumber, electrician, cooper and welder, carpenter, cabinet maker, computer expert, and smith, jacks of all trades, and those solitary and frustrated who travel about voicing these structures of sound. The player, half an octoped, arms and legs in motion, 10 fingers, 2 feet, working, bringing everything to the surface, throwing switches, turning keys, checking mirrors, programming, strategizing, piloting to faraway ports of call, spending his life aboard ship, passing hours, weeks, seasons, time of no accounting, studying, learning, hoping, regretting. Overwhelmed is he at the helm, or overboard, drowning in an ocean of effects, lost in a forest, caught in foul weather, driving all night through the fog. Mouse in man's greatest trap. Reaching, grasping, prodding, poking, slapping, stabbing, diminishing, soaking, combing cobwebs of melody and fingers full, tossing tremulous bales by the shoulder load, the soft caressing of chins, hard-taken hammer strokes on shins, yanking cloths from beneath dishes, chunking bricks through window glasses, evoking, ringing, saying, singing, mourning, weeping, shouting, bleeding, imitating earthquakes, insects and beasts, strings wailing, horns blowing, a bottomless basso profundo, the noon whistles human crescendo, each a manual and stops, which is to say fingers and thoughts, which is to say scheme, rehearsed or impromptu, which is to say matter of theory, labor, and intent, which is to say hope, vanity, and history bound in every touch, and not just touch, but weaving, culturing what comes forth. Pulling knobs, rolling dials, treading pedals, hopping keys, imposing, engaging, employing, arranging, in all its elements as one might plan a sumptuous feast, setting the menu, soup, appetizers, salad and bread, main course and dessert, from a chef who cuts and dices with every move, spice master, sauce smith, abattoir, and grocer, filling and emptying pantries for his audience. Provider and plunderer, steward and vandal, gatekeeper and wrestler, Freemason, thief, pugilist, gymnast, doctor, magician, stevedore, mesomorph, monk, and athlete. Ox in its traces, alone and tired, mule a burden, yet kingly and inspired, proprietor, servant, mayor, and lowliest denizen of this place between heaven and earth. 6. Who can know his last hour? Who can choose the final moment you find yourself wending along a dark course between elsewheres, brambles of light ahead? Who can say when strange hands will come to you, untie and take off your shoes, unfamiliar fingers tend and coif and dress you for a Sunday that lasts forever, and you arrive in a grand parlor, country of the organ, place between heaven and earth, flowers, friends, and remaindermen filling aisles and pews, hands astir, hearts and faces fluttering, moistened in weather of tears. You, like music, around the room, in the country of the organ between heaven and earth. You, like sound on the walls, in the ceiling, ever arriving and escaping into air from the chimneys of the houses of the country of the organ between heaven and earth. Sadness and joy, darkness, light, forethought and retrospect, all together combusting into music in the country of the organ. Heaven, earth, you, the far-flung song of a pipe at the core of your being. In the country of the organ, heaven and earth, you, at last, like music. Thank you. What a very compliant and cooperative audience you are. You got a lot to listen to. We're at our time. I think we should quit before they all get up and walk away anyway. Thank you so much. We have, thank you, Rupert. Come up, stand. And we did the best we could. I hope that this thing made you think of him. Mouse and man's greatest trap. And we will see you. Patricia Waters is coming from Tennessee, from Athens, Tennessee. She used to work at Troy. She in Troy, Alabama, Troy State, I think it's called.
Troy University.
Troy University. So she spent her time going from Athens to Troy and teaching English, and you can see the irony of that. But she will be here. She's so eloquent, and I'll make sure Andrew's here next time. Thank you again.